Hey everyone, I'm Marvin. Teachers are leaders. And because of that truth, there is a certain attitude that comes with that position. So we're going to talk about the attitude that every teacher should have. You know, your attitude is one of your most important leadership tools inside the classroom. Without the proper attitude, your ability to influence, your ability to act appropriately and lead your students to success is going to be limited, because the way you think, from your thinking come your actions. And when you as a teacher are limited in your ability to influence students and influence what happens in the classroom, then the environment is filled with chaos. And we all know what happens when the learning environment is filled with chaos. Students can't learn, and you definitely don't want that to happen. So let's talk about the attitude that you should have as a teacher and as a leader in the classroom. Number one, you have to accept the fact that your attitude is your choice and it is your responsibility. You know, obviously, as the school year goes on, you know, there are going to be decisions from administration that you don't quite agree with. There are going to be different things, external factors that that may inhibit the things that you can do, or maybe offer obstacles to your ability to do your job. Those things happen. Those are facts of life. But it's important that you focus on what you can control, and you don't let your attitude go to the negative side because of those things that you can't control. You see bad things, obstacles, poor decisions on the part of administration. Those things can either make you bitter or they can make you better. It's all in the way you think about it. And so when those things immediately happen, you have to study your thoughts. If your thoughts are negative, if you are compelled to go, run to your colleagues and have a discussion about how bad administration is, you've got to throw away that thought. You've got to reject that thought, because if you go down that road, if you entertain that thought, that's going to plant negative seeds in your mind. And once again, that's going to prohibit you from taking good actions to help lead your students to success. And so immediately after, again, it can make you bitter or it can make you better. See, bitter is when you focus on those thoughts and actions come from those negative thoughts. Or you can decide that you're going to be better by focusing, once again, on the things that you can control. What can you do? Okay, these options are off the table because of the decision that was made, but what can you do? Because the next day is going to come. Those students are coming to your classroom and they're wondering, what are you, their teacher, their leader, what are you going to do? What lesson do you have planned for them? And let me talk about that division between administrators and teachers. First of all, there shouldn't be that division. There shouldn't be that division. And some some leaders do a great job of bringing teachers in and making them feel special and treating them the right way. And then there are other schools where administration, they don't do such a good job. They lead from the top down, and that's not the most effective way in order to do it. But if there's something that's come down from administration and you disagree with it, okay, I understand. That's a fact of life. That does happen, and it's unfortunate. But if it's something that administration wants to do, you as a leader in that classroom, you need to execute that to the best of your ability. You know why? That's because great leaders are great followers. Great leaders are great followers. So if there's a new initiative the administration wants to do, you need to make sure that you're not part of the problem. You need to make sure that administration sees you doing the very best job you can do in order to execute it. Now, if the idea falls flat on its face, it's not because of your execution. You need to make that be true. And here's something else that will help you with your overall attitude and choosing to have a positive attitude. Certainly we have data and there are goals that administration sets by the end of the year, and those goals should really mirror the goals that you have for your students. You want them to move forward. But there are some realities that have to be faced. But in a classroom of 20 to 25 kids, you may have kids who are what we call on the low end. They're reading well below grade level. Then you have the kids in the middle. They're right there. They're on track. And then you have some kids that are reading above grade level. And so meeting the needs of all those students, it can definitely be challenging. It can definitely be challenging, but here's what you need to focus on. This is going to really help your attitude. Your attitude needs to be about movement. It's all about movement, especially, if you're working in a district that's just really thirsty for some positive student achievement, or over the past few years, it's been trending in the wrong direction. You need to focus on movement. What can you do to help all students, no matter where they are on the spectrum, helping them to move forward, getting some positive data out of them? That's where your focus needs to be. And so when you have that kind of focus, your attitude, you can't let your attitude slip to the negative side, because there is always potential. There is always room to move up for that positive movement, positive improvement with all students, no matter where they are. Second thing is that you should always be growing. You should always seek to learn, to get better. You see, growth is what makes today better than yesterday. And when you think of it that way, every day it should be exciting, because with every day there are brand new challenges, but there are also things to learn, things to apply. And so there's no room for stagnation if your focus is always to develop, always to grow, always to get better. And so with that thinking, with that mindset, with always wanting to grow, making sure that you're developing, that means you've never arrived. Even if it's a teaching strategy that you heard of when you did it the first time, you were a different person back then. Now you're even better. And so if you tried again, the results should be exponentially greater. Let me bring you in on a conversation that your administration has about you. It's a skill versus will. And so what the administration will do is they'll talk about the individual teachers, and they'll grade them based on their skill and their willingness and the skills that they bring to the table. And so it ranges from high skill, high will. You definitely want to be there to, high skill, low will, or low skill, high will. And where you don't want to be is you don't want to be in the low skill, low will. You don't want to be on the low will part. You don't want to be on the low will part, because when you're lacking in the area of willingness, that means you stop growing. And sadly, we've got people who are in the classroom, who are leading a class, who are lacking in that area. And what that does is that's a threat to student achievement, because that person is unwilling to learn, unwilling to grow, unwilling to change. Now, it's quite possible that there were some poor decisions on the part of administration that brought that person to that point. That is a reality that I will fully 100% admit. I've seen it happen. But then again, as a teacher, you're a leader in the classroom. And so your students are depending on you to lead them. So you always need to check yourself to make sure that you're growing, so that you never fall into that low will category. When you are focused on growth, when you're constantly growing, you are always generating new thoughts. And new thoughts are important, because those new thoughts are going to eventually lead to new actions. New thinking takes you through a transformation, and it makes you even better for your students. I'm reminded of the quote by Albert Einstein. He said, "We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them." And in that quote, he's talking about growth. He's talking about pursuing new learning and thinking new thoughts in order to solve problems, having that growth mindset. One of the things that great leaders do is they help those around them get better by empowering them. And that's another thing. That's a third thing you need to do. That's the kind of attitude that you need to have as a leader in the classroom, is you need to empower your students. And more specifically, what we're talking about is we're talking about self-efficacy. Now, self-efficacy means it speaks to the students' ability or their perceived capacity to complete the job, to be successful. Now, how you empower one student can be completely different than how you empower the other student. And how do you know the difference? Well, that your relationships that you build with students, that's going to be very important. And then using that data is going to tell you a lot in terms of, okay, this student is ready for this push right here. This student over here is not quite ready, but here's what I need to do to help get them ready. And for this student right here, this student is really blowing it out of the water. I need to nominate this student for the AP class next year, but I'm going to continue to push them to make sure that they are more than ready next year. And then your lesson planning is so important as well, so that you can understand when students might need help, and so you can be there quickly to offer them that help. And when you have a good plan, when you have an understanding of your students, when you've properly analyzed the data, you are able to put students in position to succeed. And when students are on that winning streak, they that sense of self-efficacy, their belief in their abilities and their capacity, it grows. So to sum it up, the attitude that every teacher should have, attitude is a choice. It's a choice. You can choose to focus on the negative, or you can choose to focus on the positive. Number two, you need to always pursue growth, always growing. And that's going to make you a better teacher each and every day. And then number three, empower students by helping them to build their self-efficacy. When students believe in themselves, it's not a struggle to get them to engage. So I thank you so much for watching. Until we meet again, never ever forget that teachers are leaders.